All right, this brings us to the first speech of the day, which is on the topic stress and anger management in our highs and lows. And for that, I would like to request uh, Rajashi Roy to please come on the digital stage. Sir, you need to switch on your video cam so that we all can see you. Joy Guru, sir.
Jai Guru.
Welcome to the web conference, sir, and thank you so much for your time. I'd like to introduce you to our audience. I'm going to brief them about you. He's currently working as senior business analyst in finance department in Government of UK, based in London. He has more than 20 years of experience in various IT positions for the organizations across the globe. And he'll be covering the topic stress and anger management in our highs and lows. So before I hand over the stage to you, I just want to say that you have 20 minutes for your speech, and we have to strictly stick to the timelines. And after that, 10 minutes will be dedicated for the Q&A session.
Okay.
So I hereby request you to please stick to the timelines because else I'll have to interrupt you and that will bother you.
No worries at all. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. It's a great honor for me to participate in this great platform where people across the globe joined and they are talking about how we can survive and grow, particularly in this current pandemic situation. So, just before saying, already Avasti has given some introduction about me. So today I'm going to cover about anger and stress management in our high and low. So let me just. So today I'm going to cover these areas like types of anger, effects of anger, sources of anger, connection of anger and ego, and ideal centricity, a way to manage anger. And finally, I will conclude. In yesterday's session, a couple of my colleagues and great speakers like Mr. Surya Mahapatra, Professor Bhaskar Chakravarti, Professor Anirban Chakravarti, they have covered at a very high level about this anger. And I think the audience have got at a very high level insights about anger. But today, in this session, I am going to cover in depth and about anger. In depth does not mean too much because Avasti has given only 20 minutes, so I'll try to cover my analysis and research work within that time. So now it's a big question. What is actually anger? I think that's really a funny question, or rather, because I think all of us become angry or we show our anger with our near and dear ones, with our colleagues, friends, whosoever it is. But when we try to define, sometimes we actually struggle a little bit that what is exactly anger. So as a psychologist around the world has defined, so I'll just share the definition of anger in next slide. So definition of anger is saying that anger is an emotion that can range from mild irritation, annoyance, displeasure to intense rage. In usual terms, people categorize anger as a solely negative emotion, but in some time it can be positive also. Like angry feeling may spur humans we to stand up for someone, or they may lead to a create social change or social justice. Like positive anger we have seen, particularly I know many of the viewer here joined from US and Europe, obviously, and India and beyond, even in Australia. We have seen in a couple of weeks back across, particularly in US, Europe, Australia, the Black Lives Matter movement, because it has a long history. Obviously, I'm not going to going into that detail, but what I'm trying to say, these are the example of positive anger. Obviously, many good things came into the world because of positive, manifestation of positive anger, like Russian Revolution, French Revolution, India's independent movement, and many others, so on, so on. But in this today's session, I will fully focus on negative, anger as a negative emotion and how we can manage our anger so that we can be more productive and more positive human being in our society as well as, and we can maintain all the relations nicely and effectively. So now, the one of the greatest psychologists of current time, Mr. Preston Nee, he has defined, categorized anger in in broad four categories, like justifiable anger. Justifiable anger is like destruction of the environment, oppression of human rights, cruelty towards animals. Since I am based in London, quite often we see a lot of demonstrations, like vegan movements are getting a lot of momentum in London. They do demonstrate in front of big restaurants, like where they promote that meat eaters are like they're also killers. So similarly, oppression of human rights, these are the justifiable anger. And even those who are from London, they know a couple of months back, London was actually stopped for 2 days because um, environmental groups environmental groups protested for 2 days because they were saying that British government is not taking enough care to maintain the global warming and etc. But second one is annoyance anger. It is the outcome of many frustration of our daily life. Like I think this is the commonest anger we experience in our everyday life. Like kids are not listening, my boss, your boss is a real jerk, or whatever. So this is kind of everyday facing. And another sort of anger is aggressive anger, attempts to exercise dominance, intimacy, intimidation, manipulation. Of course, I mean, if we go on, then racism and many other violence might be categorized in this category. And then other one, the fourth one, it's quite interesting. There is the temper tantrums. What they're saying is the disproportional outbursts of anger when an individual's selfish wants and needs are not fulfilled. How unreasonable it is. Psychologists say that there are a lot of reasons for people experience or manifest this type of anger that is called temper tantrums. It depends on like kids upbringingness and what type of parents, who brought them. So there are a lot of psychological things. But now let's see, what are the emotional impact of anger or being angry? So the thing is that now psychologists around the world have found, like when we become angry, we face a lot of emotional challenges, a lot of extra negative emotions. We develop a lot of extra negative emotions in our body, like antagonism, rage, hatred, impatience, hostility. List is on and on. Obviously, if I want to go through this all, then it might take hours. I'm not going to do that. But along with emotional impact, now scientists have also found that when we become angry, then there are a lot of real physical impact, negative impact on our body also. Just I list down few. Like when we become angry, then we face a lot of headache, fatigue, heart palpitations, tightening of chest, pressure in head, pressure in sinus cavities, increased blood pressure, tingling. We all experience in our everyday life also. So, sometimes we see in many popular Bollywood movies, like, when someone becomes so angry, then heart attack happens and people die on the spot. It happens because the thing is that body and mind are so well connected. It, if mind is disturbed, so body will always be disturbed. Now, the main thought-provoking questions I think we should have: how to manage this anger, and why it is important to manage our anger. It's like we always experience anger in our everyday life. Probably this is one of the commonest negative emotion we face, or rather we have been facing by our generations. But in current time, like those who are working in corporate world, or nowadays we see lots of well-being program there, this term has become pretty common or popular buzzword, like anger management. because now we see management is everywhere. People would like to do management. Like I have also done management in my university, but anyway, but now anger management, it has become real buzzword. Because why anger management is really important? Because when someone manifest or shows some sort of anger, it is actually a tip on the iceberg. It is just a tip on the iceberg. You see, behind that, under the sea, lot of extra emotions are there, like rejected, guilty, scared, hurt, whatever, grief, worried, lonely. This could be list is so long. So that's why anger management is really important, because what happens in our usual life, if someone shows anger to me, in our usual we just try to reflect in the same way, like why, but now time has come that we must elevate our consciousness, our sense, try to understand when someone shows their anger, then why that person is showing anger to me, what could be the reason. So these are the lots of reasons. Now in this context, I would like to come, like our guru, a love lord, or Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra, one of the greatest philosopher. I think this session becoming the conversation that becoming this West conference. This entire conference is based on the philosophy of Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra. So in this context, now I would like to show everyone like what Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra is saying. Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra is saying the main source of anger is the ego. Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra, in his own handwritten book, Satyanusaran, The Pursuit of Truth, at page number 61, Sri Thakur has mentioned, obsessed ego brings forth addiction. Addiction builds selfish interest. Selfish interest gives birth to passion. Passion is the source of anger, and anger begets violence. See, this is this cycle, and so clear and so magnificently connected. How ego is the main source of anger. So then, what we need to do to control our anger? We need to hit at the level of our ego. We need to control our ego. So how we can control our ego? See, nowadays we see lots of messages everywhere, WhatsApp or Facebook. Like in WhatsApp University, we get lots of knowledge, wisdom. Like we should remove E from the ego, then it becomes go, and then we get lot of messages everywhere that how ego is causing troubles in our relation, in our everyday relation, with relations between the husband and wife, relation between boyfriend and girlfriend, relation between whatever the boss and worker, relation with parents, relation with siblings, everywhere. So ego is the key thing. So now in the next slide, what Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra is saying, again, I have picked another very important key message from his own handwritten book, Satyanusaran, The Pursuit of Truth, at the page number 72. Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra is saying that as long as body lasts, individually will last. So long as modes of the mind remain, the ego persists. But the more passive one can remain, placing one's pride in the ideal, the more selfless and tolerant he is. It's a powerful message. What Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra is saying, that as long as we, as individual, myself, Rajarsi Roy, or whosoever around the people, those who attended, and apart from all of us, or apart from these people, those who attended, 7 billion people on earth, everyone has got their ego, because individual, everyone is an individual, everyone is a separate individual born with for separate aspiration and ambition. So ego will always be there, but how to control that ego? So this ego we can control very nicely, as Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra has mentioned, that when we can make ourselves, our own ego as a passive, and placing one's pride in the ideal. So in this example, for example, I am Rajarshi Roy. At the beginning of my speech, Avasti Mohan, she has mentioned about me that I am living in London and I have got 20 years of experience and then and blah blah, whatever it is. But it is what is important, that my biggest identity is that I am the servant of Sisi Thakur Unkul Chandra, and I believe I take extreme pride in that, and that should be the way. If we can manage our ego in that way, then we can become more selfless and tolerant. You see this tolerance, so that's why I have highlighted this couple of keywords here, because in today's world, everywhere people just teach us how to be more tolerant. Like, see, thing is that again, I would like to share the example of Black Lives Matter example, because see, we are heavily affected in that because we live in West. So you see, this is all about what? It is because of the tolerance. If people can become more tolerant, then this type of social movement or social revolution would never come. And it's social, social revolution may not be the right word, rather than I should say social disruptions would never come. If people become more tolerant, then everyone needs to be tolerant. And now, thankfully we are in a very good time in our generation, because now everywhere we face a lot of, we get a lot of opportunity to get well-being training, well-being opportunities, and particularly those who are working in the corporate world, we get a lot of well-being training, self-development training. So in this, all this training, it is always taught that how you need to be more tolerant with your colleague. And particularly since I live in London, so it is always taught that how you need to be more tolerant across all races. So then Thakur is saying that if we can keep our pride in the ideal, then we can be more selfless and we can be more tolerant. I believe this is absolute message, and I would like to request everyone, those who are attending this seminar, please focus on this message and try to take this message from this speech. From this session. So now, Sisi Thakur again is saying that ideal, what should be? So, sorry, I'd like to go back to my earlier slide for a second. So that means the key to handle our ego is ideal centricity. The moment we can, we can move around and we can have a superior ideal in our life, then we can handle our ego in a very much effective way. Yesterday session, like Mr. Surya Mahapatra and Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty, they have talked a lot about why we need an ideal in our life. But today, I have just continued from there, and I would like to focus here that why Sisi Thakur Unkul Chandra should be the ideal for all of us. Sisi Thakur is saying that what should be the ideal. So in the left side, I put an image that should be our that could be the usual traits of an ideal. Like whenever we think that who will be my ideal, whether I am a player or I am a singer or I am whatever, I am a consultant, my ideal should be intelligent, successful, strong, determined, character, integrating character. These are the traits of an ideal person. And Sisi Thakur is saying, as is the ideal in whom you place faith, so will your nature be formed and your vision too will be like that. So that means we should have an ideal in our life whose vision is like huge, whose vision is kind of, unmeasurable. So if we have that type of person as our ideal, then we can gain that type of, personality. We can get that type of personality in our everyday life, and we can become more productive human being in the society. But now, the question is that ideal centricity, obviously it has some positive impact. But now question is that how we can achieve this ideal centricity. So in my next slide, I mentioned here, fulfillment of ideal centricity is the meditation. Because in satsang, we generally prescribe, like, this means it has been practiced in satsang meditation. Satsang meditation is a combination of focused and transcendental meditation. And the thing is that why I'm talking about the focused meditation, because nowadays meditation also has become a buzzword or a very popular word in corporate world or anywhere, in Google and anywhere. So if you just do Google meditation, everyone will find lots of options about meditations. But here in satsang, we are talking about the focus meditation. Focus meditation involves focusing on any superior personality intently as a way of staying the present moment and turning off other distractions. See in this picture, if you just concentrate for the 30 seconds, you'll see that if we sit for meditation, our mind is always kind of, wandering here and there, hovering here and there. What might have happened to me 20 years back? Who was my last boss, and how my wife treated me maybe 10 years back? All these couple of non-productive thoughts come to our mind, because the thing is that although we forget things, but nothing goes off absolutely from our mind. It is always just lying in a very much hidden area, and when we sit, then all these things, all the dirts come there. So to protect ourselves all those distractions, we should have a focused meditation, and along with that, it has to be the transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation is like a silent use of a specific mantra or holy name or a sound in a unique way. Thakur has also mentioned the positive impact of transcendental meditation. Thakur is saying the thorough meditation and repetition of holy mantra, brain cells are stimulated and gradually become more responsive. Thus, the sharpness of the senses is increased. What is this saying? If we meditate thoroughly, if we practice satsang meditation, which is a combination of focus and transcendental meditation, then our brain cells are stimulated and gradually we become more responsive. So that means, in short, we can elevate the level of our consciousness. Then what will happen? Then we'll be able to understand the situation, understand the event, understand the behavior, action of my near and dear ones more closely. Because a couple of minutes back, I have mentioned here, when someone shows anger, this anger is just a tip on the iceberg. Behind that anger, there are a lot of emotions are there. And unless and until we elevate the level of our consciousness, we can't understand. And if we can't understand, then what will happen? Eventually, the delusions will be suffered, and that will affect negatively in all our actions, activities, whatever we are doing. So this is the conclusion. So all the principles of satsang prescribed ideal centricity are based on the scientific and rational thoughts. It gives all emphasis on the existence and growth of human being and others, and aims to elevate the level of consciousness. So, in the beginning, the aim of this particular seminar is the survival and growth. So here I mentioned the emphasis, the existence, and growth. It is just similar word. Thus, the ideal centricity can be considered as a positive development construct across all ages. Hence, this could be a very much effective tool to control our anger and stress in our high and low. So with that, I'm concluding. Thank you to listen and being tolerant to me also. So if you have got any question, please note down my details, my name, email, mobile, WhatsApp, and my Twitter handle also. You can straight away send any message, because I know the time is limited and I'm not sure. Probably I might have taken a couple of minutes more than 20 minutes. So I accept apology for that. But anyway, thanks a lot. Jai Guru and Vande Purushottam.
So we are going to quickly take up one question. This is from Diksha Dwivedi from India, and she asked, how do we channelize our anger into something good?
Okay, that's absolutely great question. So the thing is that for that, as I mentioned a couple of minutes back, then ideal centricity is the key word for that. Because as I was telling at the beginning of my session, that sometimes anger is very much good for also. Good also. It is not just negative, because as I have given the example, how the positive anger made lots of social changes for the good. So similarly, when we become angry, it is most important thing is that if we try to attach ourselves with the ideal and meditate with the holy name of the ideal, then we can channelize those anger into the positive direction. Because the thing is that unless and until we become, actually we don't, if we do not have any positive anger, just imagine, like I am the any kind of senior commander in army, and if I do not have the positive anger, then I cannot lead, I cannot do the job. So positive anger is very much needed when it is required. So that's why ideal centricity is the key thing for managing the anger and all other kind of negative emotion, whatever, like even ego. So I talked a lot. I talked a lot about ego, but you need to understand. We all need to understand. Ego is also like, it has the two sides of things. One is negative and positive. Unless and until we do have positive ego, any human being can't achieve, can't grow further. For example, like if I do not have ego, positive ego, then even I cannot grow in my professional and personal life also. So we should have ego and anger, but to control the anger into the right direction, we need to attach ourselves a superior ideal like Sadhguru says Thakur Nukul Chandra. So ideal simplicity is a solution to channelize the anger in the positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope Diksha that answers your questions. We have a lot of more questions, and as you have said, they can contact you directly. So I hope that they reach out to you. Thank you so much, sir, once again for your time and effort.